Well, that really does seem like that's the gist of what we're going to be getting from Aquatope and White Sand. I think at this point, with only 2 more episodes remaining of this series, we pretty much hit the pinnacle point of the series, and I'm kind of, like I said, very let down on this not really going to something more significant, but at the same time, it does really seem like it's hitting heavy on just, that's life. As we're now into episode 22 of Aquatope and White Sand, most of this episode really does center on both Kukuru getting this project done for the wedding, and at the same time, maybe a little bit insight into what we can possibly do with Fuka over the next 2 episodes before the series ends. But yes, as Kukuru comes back to Tingara, it does seem like her director is kind of accepting of him bringing her back. He's pretty much, I don't know, it seems like he's giving in to what Kukuru desires, which is that he will allow her to become an attendant. He says there's a new opening coming up, which at the time we don't really find out what that is, and that if she completes this wedding project, he's going to put in a good word for her so that she can become an attendant, so that she can transfer. So at face value, it's like, yay, cool, Kukuru can finally become an attendant, but I didn't really think I was going to go that direction. Like, immediately, the moment that he brings this up, I'm like, yeah, I don't see after this entire core, her just going, okay, cool, I finally get to become an attendant. I'm an attendant now. Because at that point, it's kind of like, well, what was the point of the whole marketing thing? She never really learned anything. It never seemed like she gained anything. So why just come here, throw a fit, become an attendant, and then roll the cast? And then add into that, they're going so far out of their way to point out that Karen is a little upset by this. So yeah, the moment that I seen that Karen was applying to, I'm like, yeah, mark my words, Karen will get that position. Kukuru is either going to give it to her or deny it so that she can continue to be marketing. But here's a struggle that I have, because obviously the direction this seems like it's going is that Karen will become the attendant. She's going to take over for Kai, and Kukuru will continue to be marketing, but it's not really doing anything to have Kukuru so far learn anything. And I guess what I mean by this is, if the whole main point of the second core is Kukuru accepting this position as marketing, finding something different, I've yet to have that point where she realizes something she likes about it, or something she gains knowledge by that improves her to do it better for the sake of what she enjoys. Yes, in this episode, she technically is pushing herself to ask others to get a perspective of what somebody would want in a wedding, but without her herself applying something, some sort of actual knowledge, she's always going to be asking others for information for her own project. It never has any point where it has Kukuru really go, okay, well, they all said this, but now it makes sense to me, this is what should be happening. Which is fine, because that's technically Kukuru. Kukuru doesn't really have good social skills as we started out the series. Kukuru was always obsessed with the animals, and she never knew about the human element. That was what her father was constantly trying to help her with, was the human element. This became an entire story arc, because what was her grandmother specifically, what was she trying to instill in Kukuru at some point? Your grandfather used to go to all these other aquariums. This was during the time where Chiyu was there. Your grandfather was going through all these aquariums and building relationships with them. He wasn't competing with them. And so this is a point which he was trying to tell Kukuru about social skills, about working with others, about everything being for the animals. No matter what aquarium you go to, it's all about building those bonds to help the fish better. And Kukuru didn't have those social skills. She was terrible at social skills. And so yes, while we did this entire course see that development in her, she gained, some respect for Chiyu, formed those bonds, and then she used those bonds to help her ask people for information about this wedding, but she herself is still kind of a little bit immature. But she has definitely grown. So yeah, she eventually has this presentation with the wedding planner. She kind of brings the wedding planner there, which they kind of walk around. It was so funny because they had this whole thing where the wedding planner's watching, Kukuru's telling about all these fish, and then at some point, it doesn't really look like the attendant's liking it. Like, she's just like, okay, don't waste my time, let's get this done. I don't have much time, I wasn't expecting this, it was the last minute. They go through all this stuff, and then she's like, okay, well, let's get to the point. And then Kukuru brings her into this one new area and tells her all about this barefoot wedding idea and keeping decorations to a minimum. So it does seem like, she's trying to do that give and take, which is exactly what I would expect it to do. That's what you have to do with something like this. If there's a restriction that you need to apply, you give and take. So Kukuru was giving them photography and all this stuff, but she can't give this. And eventually, even though it does look like the wedding planner lady's like, well, that's not great. Let's do it. It sounds great. And then she goes, okay, well, show me more fish. And then she's just running around the aquarium all happy like a kid. It's like, where the hell did this lady come from? Like, she looked like she hated everything, and suddenly out of nowhere, she's like a little child running through the aquarium. Like, she's keeping it bottled up the entire time until they finish the presentation, and then she's like, yes, break time to act like a kid and run around and look at the fish. But yeah, during this entire planning process, Kai does come to Kukuru to, talk to her, and she's busy. She missed something again. But then she find out later that, yes, technically his father has collapsed, and so he's going to be taking time. So that's the position that was open, but he doesn't say that he's leaving. He's like, no, I just need some leave, and then I'll come back. So, obviously you transfer somebody from another department into that position to cover. That doesn't make sense, but we'll go with it. But that was kind of a brief little drama beat, but it does kind of open the door for an attendant, which, again, like I said, everything's flagging Karen's going to take that position. But yeah, the other side of this whole ordeal was the focus on Fuka. And it's funny because it was only like 2 brief scenes we get of Fuka, and this particular heavy dump of environmentalist stuff. And it's obvious at this point, even with these 2 brief scenes, that we're really hitting on Fuka doing something regarding environmentalist stuff. Now, the big question mark comes around, how involved is that? It doesn't seem like... I don't necessarily think this is just exposition about environmentalist stuff. Like, oh, I just had some time, so I started to read some books, and then here comes in somebody and goes, okay, well, did you know? Did you know? Information dump. An interesting idea is if this is kind of set up for what they could do in possibly the after story episode. Like I said, typically with these 2 core stuff, PA Works can do some after story stuff where it's like, and this is where they ended up kind of thing. And I think what they're trying to paint here is that Fuka could become an environmentalist. Not just become an environmentalist, but also the idea of her utilizing her presence to create some sort of awareness. Her being able to come in front of those cameras and say, hey, how's it going? This is a problem. Can we help this? And I think that's where they're kind of pushing her. I don't know if it will be within Tengara or not, but she's obviously in this episode, out of nowhere, finding a passion in something. I don't think she wants to leave Tengara, but maybe they can have some sort of awareness campaign within Tengara. They can bring in the camera crews, and Fuka could talk about the turtles being an issue, that pollution's an issue, and that we need to save the animals, and she can be that face. That's something I've always been looking for in this entire series. It's like, why open up the series that Fuka is an idol? Well, she's going to use her idol status to help save Gama Gama. Never does. Okay, well, we're jumping in the future now. We're at Tengara. What did Fuka do? Oh, she's going to come work on the penguins. Okay, the idols show back up. What is Fuka going to do? Oh, she's like, no, I'm not really that interested. It never played off the idol thing, but this is a chance that they can do something with it. Like, okay, we introduced it. What can we do with it? Now, granted, the answer to that is that she just becomes an attendant, and it's not really about the idol thing. It's about her finding a new passion and giving up this stardom, but it could be a medium. It could be that middle ground that they can do where she brings in attention and uses her ability to speak in front of people to tell people about this issue. So that's where I'm kind of leaning for the next 2 episodes. Fuka becoming an environmentalist to speak out about pollution and stuff, while Kukuru continues to do marketing. Karen becomes an attendant, and that's kind of it. Again, I'm going to echo my concerns that I've had for, I think, this entire core, that I hope they knock it out of the park. I hope these next 2 episodes are really hitting it, but yeah, we'll see. But that's my thoughts on Aquatope and White Sand, episode 22. Hope you guys enjoyed my impressions. If you did, leave a like down below. Comment. Let me know what you thought of the episode. Do you think my ideas of Fuka is correct? Subscribe if you haven't already. Share this video if you can. Support us on Patreon if you can. Definitely appreciate everybody that does. And y'all take care.